Okay, so it's happening. 4 Americans who have gone abroad have said that they have gotten deported and that their passports were marked lost or stolen. This is incredibly alarming because American Airlines are allowing Americans to leave not checking their passport's validity. They are then arriving internationally only to be informed while abroad that their passports were marked lost or stolen. This happened to 4 different Americans all recently within the last 2 weeks. One was in Rome, one in Colombia, one in Vietnam, and the other happened in Thailand. All of them, 3 of them had to pay for their deportation flight back. One of them had to pay $400 for an emergency passport. None of them have gotten answers on why this happened. Apparently, nobody knows why it happened. And with everything going on with the American government, I wouldn't be surprised if this is something that's just happening right now. This was literally one of my worst fears, which was why I applied for for dual citizenship and why I also got a second passport, because of this exact thing happening. I had a fear that the US would retaliate in some way because of the way they were forming the bills, which was why I kind of was like, looks fishy. And now Americans are actually having experiences with this.
This video is not super fun to make. However, I was encouraged to make it by the office of my congressional representative, which is a crazy thing to say out loud. Someone or something in the Trump administration wiped my existence from the US passport database. Let me explain. On December 19th, 2025, I received a notice at 2:17 in the morning, local time here in Los Angeles, that my access to the Global Entry Traveler Program had been revoked. And the reason for my revocation was that I no longer met the requirements for the Global Entry Program. Now, the requirements are not having been charged with a felony, check, never been charged with a felony, having valid identification and documents, check, I have valid documents. My passport was not expired. And one of the last things on the eligibility list was not under investigation for terrorism. Well, that exact day, Pam Bondi sent a letter to the FBI requesting that pro-trans activists be labeled as domestic terrorists. I'm shaking. So, as many of you guys know, I am a pro-trans activist. I have worked with the ACLU during the US versus Scrimetti case. I have a trans partner. I have a trans sister. I am very blessed to have many trans friends. And I have worked as a healthcare provider, providing gender-affirming care for trans youth. And needless to say, I freaked the fuck out. I did also contact friends of mine who are attorneys and friends of mine who work in the federal government. And I was told there is a chance that this could have just been a clerical error. And so for the sake of my mental health, I just went with that. And they told me to go ahead and apply to renew my passport online and see what happens next. So last week I did just that. And I applied on the US passport website to renew my passport online as it expires this coming year. I was then told that no one with my identity was found anywhere in the US passport system. At this point, I got in contact with my congressional representative and his office, and was told by one of the field staff here in Los Angeles that this specific notice was unusual and that there had been a record of clerical errors where people had been removed from the passport system because their passport was incorrectly marked lost or stolen. That is not what happened to me. And I was told that if that had happened, the error message that I received would have said that. It didn't. It said that no one with my identity was found anywhere in the US passport system. So, with the help of my congressional representative and his office, I am now waiting for an appointment with the US passport office here in Los Angeles to see what's going on, to see if there are any holds on my access to my legal documents that would allow me to travel and leave the country, and why this is is happening, because right now no one seems to have a clear reason why. And again, it could be clerical error. However, knowing that I am allegedly the only person that this specific series of events has happened to, and also knowing that the Global Entry Program is a completely different governmental agency than the passport system, and that both of them had been alerted of me. I don't know. So that is my update for you guys. And if I go dark, I need you guys to be really loud. And if this continues to happen to people, or if this happens to you or someone you know, please get in contact with your congressional representative, and just know that there are pathways. And that also you are not alone, because I have been alone this whole time. I didn't think this was happening to anybody else, and I still don't know of anyone else that this exact series of events has happened to. So that is my update. Thank you for watching, and holy shit.
I was deported from Thailand, and it's because the American system is failing you in a way that you don't even know about. So on December 28th, me and my girlfriend fly from Miami, Florida, to Doha, Qatar, to Bangkok, Thailand. And upon arrival, I go into immigration and I'm told that my passport is flagged as lost or stolen by Interpol. So in case you don't know, the only way that it can be marked as lost is if you yourself mark it as lost. You need your social security number, your birth certificate, you need all of your personal information to mark it as lost. I did not do that. So here I am, about as far away from the United States as I could possibly be, with an invalidated passport flagged by Interpol, International Police, to which I did not know about. I'm then told that I am not allowed to enter the country, and I'm detained until I am back on United States soil. So I'm getting deported with an invalidated passport that I used to book 6 international flights, and I got on 2 of those international flights with an invalid passport. And I know for sure that it wasn't a mistake, it's actually invalid, because when we got back to the States, Customs told me that it was lost, and it was marked lost 1 month after I got the passport. So this means I didn't even have the passport in the mail yet, and it was marked as lost. But I got it, and then 6 months later, I used that invalidated passport to book 6 international flights, and I got on 2 of them. So they had no more information for me, so I contacted the Department of the State, like the department of the government that's responsible for this, and they said they have no idea what I'm talking about, they've never heard of this situation before, and they tell me to go to another department. So I called the National Passport Information Center, and in their system, it's not marked as lost. There's no problem with my passport from the National Passport Information Center. They told me that different departments handle the application of your passport, and there's a completely different department that handles whether or not it's lost or stolen. So hours on the phone later, with the only 2 departments of government that are responsible for this, I have no information as to what happened, except I'm told to send a physical letter through snail mail to a random government P.O. box, and maybe they'll know what's happening with me. I spoke to the airlines, I spoke to an immigration lawyer, and what I've realized is that getting on a flight obviously does not do a full check of your passport. Meaning that the only way I could have possibly known that my falsely flagged passport was flagged was to go through international immigration services in a different country. And they let me get on 24 hours of flights to be as far away from home as I possibly could be to find this out. If you're watching this, I sincerely hope you understand just how freaking dangerous that can actually be. To be totally clear, this was one of the most traumatizing things to happen in my and my girlfriend's lives. We are financially damaged, we are emotionally scarred. It was a horrible experience. However, we're back home, we're safe, but my concern is somebody a lot more vulnerable could go somewhere a lot scarier by themselves, and you would be stuck in a situation that you cannot come back from. So just as another reminder, if your passport is flagged by international police, you are still allowed to get on an international flight. This is not okay. We spoke to the airlines. They said it's not their job to check that. Why? Why is that not checked when getting on an international flight? The responsibility of an airline and our government, to an extent, is to ensure the safety of people getting on a flight. And they're not even doing a full check of your passport when you're getting on a flight. So how can they say that we're keeping us safe? So I'm not making this video to complain about what happened to me. I'm at home and I'm safe. I am making this video to spread awareness that this could happen to you and you could have no idea that it's going to happen to you until you're in a dangerous situation. At this point, I have nobody to contact. I am resorting to emailing and sending letters in the mail to my local representatives, my state representatives, and I'm almost at a dead end and don't know what to do about it. If you or anybody that you know is involved in government or agencies or international affairs or even the airline, please show this to them because I am literally at a loss at this point. The airlines don't give a shit about me. Every single government agency I've talked to don't give a shit about me. The people at the airport don't give a shit about me. So if you understand how dangerous this situation was for me and how dangerous it could be for you and other people, please give this a share and get it where it needs to go. Please send me a message or a comment or something, and American Airlines, waiting on a response.
When I said back in January of 2025 that border plan isn't just to keep people out, it's to keep you in, I wasn't just talking out of my ass. And I said that you might want to start applying for a visa if you plan on leaving because you might not be able to once Uranus is in Gemini. I wasn't saying that to fearmonger. Let's roll the clip.
So many people are saying that we're gonna get the fuck up out of this country when Trump becomes president, but I'm gonna be real with you, it might not be possible soon. Because let's be clear, that border plan isn't just to keep people out, it's to keep you in. If you do plan on leaving, specifically to Europe, I would say do that process right now. Expect other countries to maybe put sanctions on the US or at least some sort of restrictions on the immigration process for Americans specifically to be refugees and flee this country. We're gonna see shakeups and disruptions to borders, education, transportation, secession movements, communication, and war. Whether it's civil war or a bigger war, but war regardless.
If you're unfamiliar, I have a political astrology podcast with my co-host where we've been talking about what's to come for the next 7 years since back in January of 2024. Specifically around the idea that other countries would start to impose sanctions on the United States. Other countries will start to enforce sanctions and travel bans on US citizens from coming into their country because, yeah, you guys are genocidal maniacs. Specifically in response to the United States' government and its military and its genocidal operations. US airlines are now locked out of Caribbean US territory airports because of the Venezuelan airstrikes, and people are stranded right now. Like, they cannot leave. Mali and Burkina Faso have also enforced retaliatory travel bans on US citizens. Uranus is currently retrograde in Taurus, but once it goes direct again in Gemini, major disruptions to travel for the next 7 years, specifically from this country, trying to limit and restrict people from leaving, especially if you are vocal against the government, especially if you are pro-Palestinian. Remember back in like November or December when the government shut down for weeks on end and nobody could fly out because TSA and the airlines were shut down? Yeah, that was a soft test. Major airlines right now are getting information from every single person and giving that information over to ICE. It doesn't matter if you're an immigrant or US citizen, it does not matter. And because we're going to be having these major disruptions to travel, we have emphasized in this episode, you are going to have to find alternative methods of travel. What are you going to do when, not if, when you cannot leave? How are you going to get around from point A to point B if the highways are shut down, either because of the military, because of ICE, or because people are starting to fight back? More protests inevitably keep popping up and flights are then shut down. How are you going to get around? Or even if it just becomes dangerous in general to fly, if pilots keep getting COVID and they have more and more brain fog that prevents them from being able to accurately and safely fly, if there's more budget cuts to the ways that people are manufacturing and repairing planes, how are you going to get around? And let's put international travel aside. What are you going to do when there's just domestic travel shutdowns, when you can't even get from one state to the other without showing your papers or ID because of the military, because of Border Patrol, ICE? How are you going to get around if the National Guard is stopping you for your papers? That's a deep cut from our first episode back in February of 2024. Even from an environmental standpoint, if you cannot travel because there is an environmental disaster, there's a climate catastrophe due to the US military, due to these increasing genocides and bombings worldwide, how are you going to get around? Pacific Northwest was just flooded with barely any coverage. Alaska, even Appalachia. Again, how are you going to get around when traditional methods of travel are no longer an option? When the dependence and reliance on cars and just car culture as a whole starts to tank, do you have a boat? Do you have a horse? Do you have a method of community transport? All of these things are going to have to be thought about and planned ahead of time. Just with the hyper implementation of the surveillance state in areas of public transport, again, how are you going to get around this? I need y'all to understand that it does not matter what your status is as a citizen. Like, that means nothing. That means nothing. And y'all need to really just remove this American exceptionalist mentality that you have, thinking that you're going to be safe when fascism starts knocking at everybody's door. Because it's already been here for the past 400 years. It's just going into overdrive now. And because I come with receipts, I'm gonna leave y'all with just this small little clip from our second podcast episode, just so you know, I know what I'm talking about. Make sure to follow me there.
And on top of other countries maybe potentially barring U.S. citizens from coming to their country, who's to say that this country won't do the same thing, just with its own citizens, and say that no, actually you don't have the right to extend your visa, maybe have tighter visa restrictions and tighter limitations on how long you can be at the country, or if you can even go to certain countries, or which countries are eligible for U.S. citizens to go to. They might try to do this out of this fake sort of guise of safety, like, oh, it's not safe for U.S. citizens, and we need to protect ourselves, we need to protect our borders. I mean, in terms of Cuba and North Korea, there are so many hoops that you need to go through as an American citizen just to visit these countries. It is extremely difficult just to get into these countries as a U.S. citizen. So who's to say that, the United States would be like, no, travel isn't, a right. It's not a freedom. It's not, something that's stated in the Constitution. They could definitely try to impose extremely tight restrictions on the ways that people can travel, especially if people are already saying that, oh, I'm planning on leaving, and that severely threatens the access to the labor pool that this country has. If people just start leaving in mass, there's nothing that would stop them from being like, actually, no, you can't leave the country. Sorry, you're going to have a very legitimate reason for traveling in the future, because people are starting or are having these conversations about fleeing. If you have the means and the money to do so, granted, it is a very extensive process, especially as fascism starts to really make itself known. If you come from a very specific part of the world, or you're first gen, or, you have a very specific last name, you have a very specific ethnicity, a very specific religion, who's to say that these specific demographics of people would be given the leisure and the luxury of being able to travel? There's already, discrimination and targets on people who go to the airport and they already live here, getting just stopped because you're a hijabi, or you look visibly brown or Muslim or black or foreign. All of these things are already here, and they're definitely just going to intensify with these transit.
Yeah, and I'll also add, I think we'll see them, other countries may try to stop their citizens from visiting the United States because they think the United States is like a terrorist organization, which...
Yeah, I mean, hello?
I don't disagree at all.
Well, yes.
Yeah. They're going to be like, yeah, it's not safe for you to visit the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go. And then that's going to put more pressure on the U.S. to get its shit together. But it's already collapsing. So don't even try.
Literally, it's going to be this thing where, even if people want to leave because there is internal fascism, as a protective measure, border-wise, other countries might be like, no, we're going to put sanctions on the U.S. Yeah, plot twist, you guys have the sanctions now. You can't come here. You're not able to be here because and we were talking about how a lot of white liberals are going to try and leave.
Yeah.
They might try and leave the country, and maybe they'll have some room and opportunity to do that, but they're definitely going to try and leave these major cities where a lot of this state suppression is, because they don't want to be on the receiving end. They're just going to go to the country where it's just mainly white people doing white people things, being oppressive with each other. So yeah, it's just going to be this race of who can flee the fastest and what routes can we take, because it's just going to be chaos for multiple reasons, for protection reasons, for aggression reasons, borders and travel. It's just going to be a lot of people playing chess with each other and blocking who can move where, who can go where.
I'm going to talk about some real serious shit, and then I'm going to get back to my other videos that's more funnier. But y'all, have y'all been seeing these goddamn TikToks where they are, I don't know if it's they're revoking people's passports, but ultimately people are getting notified that their passports have been marked as lost or stolen. And if you know anything about international travel or having a passport or the process and how strenuous and just frustrating that process can be. So with the passport, when your passport is marked as lost or stolen, there is this long ass process that you have to go through to basically prove that you are who you say you are, and that you are the actual person that is the owner and the identified person of that passport, and you're really the person saying that it's lost or stolen. So the fact that people are getting notified that their passport has been marked as lost or stolen, and they didn't even fucking mark it as lost or stolen, is crazy. And it's a lot of people that are afraid and terrified that it's the administration pushing back at voices that are, disestablishment. They're pushing back against people that support trans Americans. They're pushing back against people that support immigration, or immigrant Americans, or immigrant people that live in America, I guess, because, you know, ICE has been taking people left and right from like the most random fucking places. It's just been a lot of fucking shit going on. And I guess I say all that to say, check on your motherfucking passport, bitch. If I don't have this girl right here, this girl, and you know it's so crazy, my motherfucking passport, this bitch, she goes everywhere that I motherfucking go, okay? She got a lot of stamps. I gets out. I gets down. So if my motherfucking passport come up and these bitches be like, oh, they done fucking mark my shit as lost or stolen, people are being deported when they're like traveling to other countries. This is like crazy. Like, this is insane. Like, as long as I've been alive, the 30 fucking years that I've been alive, I have not seen no shit like this. So to see this type of shit happening or whatever, like, if you're not afraid, get fucking afraid. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't do politics, politics gonna do your ass. And it's just so disheartening, because it's like, if you did vote for Kamala, if you did vote for Hillary, if you did like really tried your best, like, yeah, we had Biden in between, but it's just obvious that like we up against some whole other shit. Like, this big beautiful bill is changing a lot of shit. I don't know if anybody else has been paying attention to the news about like if your student loans are delinquent, or if they are, even I think if they're in deferment, like if you've shown that, if it's like a long history of that you haven't paid your student loans, or you haven't paid anything, bitch, they finna start garnishing wages. Like, and I guess my whole thing on that is like the fact that education really should be free, you guys. Like, I stand by that. I think that'll always be like my sentiments. I feel like certain professions, you have to get an education in order to do the profession, that being like doctors, attorneys, engineers, architects, goddamn accountants, like, I mean, all these important people that we need in society, they have to get an education. So why are we making it so hard for it to be accessible? And why are they fucking doing the most about people paying these goddamn student loans? Like, I get it. I understand a loan. I get that you take out a loan, you have to pay it back. I get that. But it's like, let's be real. A lot of these people that are taking out these loans are going to get this education. Like, they never had the means to, what the fuck? Like, and then a lot of people know, like, when you do get a certain education, even if you do get a higher paying job, it takes so long to get the fucking money up to be able to pay that shit back. Like, it's just a fucking mess. Like, I don't know, but I gotta do something, y'all. Like, what the fuck do I gotta do something. Like, this is just not making sense. Like, I promise you, like, and sometimes I think back to when I was a kid and like I really, really wanted to be a politician because I really felt like I could make a difference out this bitch. But like, I promise you, it's getting so like desolate out this motherfucker. Like, I swear to God, even today, like, I'm looking up, it's raining and shit. Like, it just looks so ugly and gloomy. Like, just upon hearing more and more about the news, I just feel like it's just making shit like horrible. Like, America is just so horrible. And I mean, it's always been bad, but I don't think that we've seen it get this bad. Like, we haven't seen it gotten like this bad in a long time, and it's increasingly getting worse. Like, you know, you think of like America or like history in general as like the stock market. Like, you're gonna have your ups, you're gonna have your downs. Like, this is like the worst fucking down that we have had in a long time, and I don't know what's gonna happen. And I've never been able to say that as a 31-year-old American. I've never been able to say that, like, I don't know what's gonna happen, or I don't think we're gonna make it out of this. But sometimes the more and more shit comes out on the news, I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make it out this shit. And the more and more that I travel, the more and more I start to like seriously consider having dual citizenship somewhere else, because I didn't think that it would ever get to that point. And it's hard, because I mean, if you're like born here in America, like born and raised, tried and true, like this is all you fucking know, you never think that like you're ever gonna like uproot. But like, it's getting bad, y'all. It's getting bad.
The Vice President of the United States has now come out and said that ICE will start going door to door to arrest and capture people. Disturbed J.D. Vance ICE door-to-door comments compared to 1930s Germany after horror shooting. Vice President J.D. Vance has advocated for ramping up deportations with door-to-door operations as tensions over immigration enforcement intensify following the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis. So now, after the shooting, he came out, they defended the guy. They said the guy has absolute immunity, so nothing is going to happen to him. And not only that, he said we need more. And you know what's funny? At least 50% of Nigerians who follow me, who are non-Northerners, non-Muslim, will watch this video and still say, yes, we don't care. We want America to come and save Christians. Look what they're doing to Christians in their own country. Look what the Christians are doing to Christians in their own country. Now that they're going door to door, you see, this is before the World Cup. They're announcing this. They're trying to make us slowly accept the reality. As I said, the Iron Curtain will come down either after the World Cup or after the Olympics. One of the two will happen. It will be that American citizens cannot and will not be able to leave America. You cannot have a police state without people to police. And here it is. This is the exact same thing that the reason it's being compared to 1930s Germany is because the Gestapo, Polizei, or whatever the fuck it is Geiststaffpolizei. Fuck the Germans. I don't give a fuck. Gestapo literally started out doing this. They started out going house to house, and then eventually it got to the point they were so powerful that at home, this is a true story, look this up, it happened in almost every home in Germany. At home, a father, a wife, son, daughter sitting down eating dinner, every single person is afraid of saying something negative to Gestapo because the father doesn't know if his wife will give him away. The father and wife don't know if their sons or daughters will snitch on them. Literally, it made families afraid to have conversations at home because you did not know who was going to sell you out in your own family. Now it's starting in America, and nobody... See, I've always said it, and I hope everyone's finally believing it now. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with government. The reason Americans have to have guns is because if black Americans ever wake up to seek vengeance for slavery, Americans need to have a way to defend themselves.